Yeah, so what did your dad tell you?
He told me we were talking about sociology.
Yeah. Do you know anything about sociology?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. What do you think sociology is?
I don't know, like how different like situations occur like in our society. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's a really good definition. You really don't know. So sociology is the study of social behaviors and social interactions, and this can be like cultural things. It can be from like country to country, how things change, but it can also be over time. And so there are three. There are three main like schools of thought. So there are different ways of looking at all of these things that happen in our society. And three of the main theories of looking at it. So the first one is what's called the structural or functional theory. And it's that basically it's that everything in our society has a function or a dysfunction. So what do you think would be a good example of that? Do you know anything? Like what's something in our society that you think serves a function to society?
Like,
and there are no wrong answers, so you're good. You're good.
Like schools?
Yeah, schools serve a function, and within schools there are lots of functions and dysfunctions. What do you think one of the functions of school is?
Like, is it supposed to be like abstract or like concrete? Like teachers or like learning skills?
Yeah. So, one of the functions in schools is to learn, and to learn how to learn, basically, or learn how to take a test, or learn history, learn, there are a lot of subjects, so that's a function of schools to learn that subject. But also within school, there are social norms that are being taught, like organization, for one, and you learn social skills, how to communicate with others, how to present things in formal or informal situations to larger groups of people. Do you think there are any dysfunctions to school?
Well, probably. Just think about it.
And it's kind of hard, you know what I mean? Like it is abstract in a way, where a lot of things in sociology, and that's why there are a lot of schools of thought that go behind a lot of the things that they can prove and things like that, because it's so it can differ, and it can differ, like I said, between country and country, like what is taught. Like in England, it is very proper, and there are prestigious things, that come with going to school, titles and different things but like here in America, it's public. So there aren't necessarily titles that come until you go into post-secondary school or things like that. But overall, there are functions we can find in school. But some of the dysfunctions, it kind of differs. Like there are some teachers who are very dysfunctional to school and education and what it's supposed to serve to society. So that's one school of thought. So it's the functional. So to remember that one, I always think of everything in society as a function or a dysfunction, or else it wouldn't be there. So one that actually always comes to mind when I think of this is prostitution. We know that prostitution is bad. There's not a whole lot that's good in it, but it serves a function in our society. It's a dysfunction to some people, but to others, it's a function because it's their way of life. It's their, that's how they earn their money, or it's a pleasure. But we know from our own personal experiences and from the gospel aspect that that's not a good thing, that, we have standards and things like that. We have the law of chastity and, we know our worth and things like that. So kind of my main overall thing in doing this lesson is to kind of help you kind of see worldly things and also be able to see gospel applications of either how to change it or what is actually true, and then looking from both of those to know the truth and to know why we have those gospel doctrines or those gospel principles, even though we live in a world where prostitution serves a function. So the second school of thought is the conflict theory. And the easiest way to describe that is the haves and the have-nots. So there's always a power struggle where people want the best and they go for it and they get it. But there are people who, no matter what they do, they feel like they can't get it. So it's the haves and the have-nots. And the way that I think of that one is, do you know what a monopoly is?
Yeah, sorry.
The board game?
Yeah.
So a monopoly is where one business has control over everything in the economy. So like a power company, that's a true monopoly because there aren't 5 different power companies for our houses. That's not possible. You know what I mean? It's not. Words, they're hard on a Monday. It doesn't make sense to have all of those because they're all supplying the same thing, but it's hard to do that. Where like as in gas, like for your car, there are so many gas stations that it's not a monopoly. So conflict in that people are always complaining that people hold too much power and they're not allocating it, they're not spreading it evenly amongst people. Feminism is a good way to look at that. So a lot of feminists argue that women or other ethnicities don't have as many rights as men. And so they're trying to allocate that power so that it's equal amongst everyone. So what is conflict theory based off of that definition? What do you think conflict theory is? I just want to make sure that I'm not explaining it well.
So it's basically like people feeling unequal. So like there's some people that will have things and some people that won't.
Okay, that's a pretty good definition. And then the last one is the symbolic theory, that everything in society has a symbol. So I'm trying to think of a good one to explain. So you know the drawing for a female and a male?
Mm-hmm.
So those are symbols within society for a female. And that, represents all of her roles and things like that. Or the women's sign on a bathroom. You know that's for women and things like that. Or men, or different things like that. Like, can you think of a symbol within society? Or emojis. Emojis are a huge one right now. They serve, because by the crying face that, either someone's laughing or someone's really sad. Or there's different things that come with that. But as you study different things, you can actually find symbols within your society. How different societies have different symbols, and over time how those things have changed. And that one's a little harder to find. Okay, so this is actually from my class. So I took a class on social problems, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. And we talked about all of these. So there's wealth, there's poverty, power, gender, race, all these different topics, and we broke it down into each of those theories, and we found the functions it serves or the conflict within it, or the symbols and things like that. So the two that I kind of wanted to talk to you today about was gender and the family. Is there one that you maybe want to start with, or would you rather choose different ones? Do you want to look through this real fast and see if there's one that you'd rather do?
I don't care which one we'll
Okay.
say.
Let's go with this. Okay, so when you think of gender, what do you think of?
Like over here.
Do you think, so is your sexual orientation part of your gender?
Yeah.
Why?
Because, like, God gave you different roles to fulfill. And so, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, so your gender is actually something that you're given the day you're born. It's your genetic makeup. So you either have two X's or you have two Y's. But in society today, sexual orientation and your gender have actually kind of started to blur the lines. And so you're right, and we know that that's something that God gives us, that that's part of our lives, that just doesn't happen by chance, right? And so, but in society, there's what, I think, 17 different orientations that you can claim to have. I mean, people are making them up out of thin air, it almost seems like, right? But gender is very scientific. And actually in this class, it was a very interesting situation, and it was very cool to see the gospel application to this. So my professor, Brother Smith, he shared with us a story. One of his neighbors was an award, and the bishop there told him this, and it's the bishop's life. So this individual started out as a woman, served the mission as a woman, doing all of that. And then in college, she actually was at the University of Utah. And they were doing genetic testing and with gender and things like that, because that was starting to become popular, and they were starting to do more research on it. And so she did a test, and she found out that she was 75% male. And that's kind of tricky, especially within the church, right? Because we know our roles, and we know our gender is very important to those roles. And so she actually went to the church, and they agreed with the science behind it. And it's a very tricky line that she was male. And so she actually was priesthood and is a male now and is that bishop. So it's really interesting, and there are a lot of thin lines, and I think that shows the example of how our social interactions, how our social problems, they blur into everything, right? It's what makes up our culture. And in this situation, they found the science behind it. And it wasn't some little thing that, changed. It was very prayerfully done. Priesthood, went through it. There were a lot of things. But we know for us that we're females, right? And you have all of those DNA, those qualities. But in society, you can say you're a female, but claim you're anything. You can claim you're a male. You can claim that you're a unicorn. She saw that recently. But what do you know for gospel truth? What is one of your gospel truths when it comes to gender?
That we were each given a role to fill, like we were each placed on this earth as a male or a female.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to, we have certain roles to fulfill within that gender.
Yeah, so what are some of our gender roles?
Having a family and, being able to bear children.
Okay, so that's some for us as females. What are some of the male roles?
Being able to hold the priesthood and like preside over a family.
Yeah. Can you think of any more roles for each of those?
They instruct men to like get a job and to be able to like pay for the family. I mean, obviously there's different circumstances with that, but like being able to work and provide for the family is part of something that comes with being a man.
Let's go back to your thought about certain situations. So within the church and within society, what do you think changes, our roles? Because we have set roles that either the church, gives out guidelines or, talks about, or that the world kind of sets and things like that. So what happens when in a family there aren't both of those roles? Can the male or the female take up some of the other's roles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it kind of expected a little bit?
Yeah.
Especially in both situations, in the world and in the church. You still have to provide for your family, even if you're a single mom or a single dad. And the church comes in and helps with that, and that's why the priesthood is given to all worthy men, right? So that way, and especially with the ministry, with the new council that's given out to change from teaching and visiting teaching into that ministry. So that way they can find the single parent or the widower and help kind of lighten that load. So that way they're not having to carry all of those roles. But it's still kind of expected, right? So kind of from that conversation, can you tell me what gender roles are?
What do you mean exactly?
Like explain to me, had I not known, explain to me what gender is and what gender roles are.
So gender is basically like something that you're born with, and you have two different sides, male and female, and you have different responsibilities that would come with each of them. And they should still be able to help each other. It's not just a strict set of rules like you're not always going to be like, I'm going to always do the dishes and you're always doing the laundry. Like, say someone missed their day of dishes, you might have to help them out. And so, like, they work together even though they still have their specific roles that they're supposed to play.
Yeah. So from the world and from the culture we live in and our gospel truth, so what are the functions? So we looked at the functions. Can you see any conflicts in those roles? Or in gender?
I think one of the main ones that people see, like with feminists and stuff, is seeing like the responsibilities that women have to men have as like we have less, like our tasks are almost like below us, and so like we have less worth or value than a man would.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I think that's very true. So with that perspective, what is the gospel perspective?
That we each have divine roles. It talks about it in the family proclamation. No, the man isn't more important than a woman, and a woman isn't more important than a man, but they're equal, and they're supposed to help each other.
That the woman is the helpmeet, right? And that it's not something that, I don't know, my thought is, especially with gender, is we had that in a pre-existence, you know what I mean? And when we came to earth, we inherited all those qualities, and we were blessed to continue that life, but it's our choice how to continue it. Does that make sense? And I like what you said, that no one is greater than the other. No one, we're equal. And that while we have different roles, it's kind of like the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we complete the other. So what are some symbols with gender? We kind of talked about a few of them in the beginning, like the symbol and the different signs. But what do you think are some of your symbols?
Would color be one?
Yeah, I think that is one. Yeah. Another part to this that I should have explained better is it's society telling you your role or you telling society your role. That's a good way to look at it. So, how do you think that goes into context with what the world thinks? Is it the world telling you your role, or are you telling the world?
I think it's some of both.
Yeah.
Like, there's, because we have the different colors for the different genders, I think we kind of look at the colors differently. Like, we have pink and blue, and so pink we also usually think of as, like, more peaceful and, like, calm and gentle, and blue's, like, more powerful, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I never actually thought of it that way. That is a really good way to think of that. And I think that kind of goes more into why, boys can't wear pink. You know what I mean? Or like, boys can't play with, girl toys and girls shouldn't really play with more masculine toys. And it kind of blurs those things. And then it kind of goes all over the place in how I think sometimes it takes away a child's opportunity to just be a child and to play with, whatever toy they want to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think the symbolistic theory, the way we look at that, is it's very defined. It's very separate. Or sometimes it's okay to mix those. So overall, what do you think the world's aspect is for gender?
I think right now it's more of that, like, you should be able to choose whatever you want to be, and that, they're kind of trying to say the same thing, is that no role shouldn't be more important than the other, but I think they're kind of blurring the roles together, like, they're not understanding that, yes, one isn't more important than the other, but that also doesn't mean that they should be easily, like, switched. And there's different purposes, like, just with our genetic makeup, like, guys have stronger muscles than girls most of the time because the genetic makeup of their muscles is different.
Yeah.
And so that's oftentimes why you let them do the heavy lifting or something like that. Not to say that girls can't work out, be strong. They should, but
we handle the weight differently.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I feel like, especially in women in that aspect, like, we're stronger. We have more lean muscle.
Yeah.
Whereas guys have, more of the stocky muscle.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is our gospel truth? What do you think the gospel truth is with gender?
That we're given a gender before, like we talked about in the premortal existence, and we come to Earth to be able to fulfill that role, and each of the roles comes with different responsibilities, and both of them complement each other. So we should be able to help.
Yeah, definitely. So, in knowing both of those things, what do you think is true? What is your own personal theory on gender?
I think that we are born like male or female, and I think that we each have a role to play in society as a male or female, and it doesn't have to just be like the responsibilities that we have set, like in the church that we know. It doesn't always have to be like just those responsibilities, but you should be able to complement. Our roles should complement each other, and we should be able to work together to accomplish things.
Yeah. And so, do you see how each of those theories kind of plays a role in that overall topic? when we talked about this, it was really interesting because we're here at a very religious school, and when the world is kind of going so against what we know to be true, and what we've experienced our whole lives, and trying to see that, and then look at it from the gospel lens, and to know, and in each of these topics, it really helped me know what I know to be true, and it helps me learn what I'm not willing to give up to be in the world. And I think this is kind of an important one, especially within the world we live in now, but also within our own families, because that ties right into families and in our roles in a family, right? And so learning that, kind of what I did, I know that my family is ordained of God, that I have a worth, I have a divine worth, and it's different from a male's role, and that when situations arise and that we can't work together, I can still, bring on those roles and to provide for my family and to use the priesthood that those around me use to bring in that priesthood spirit. You know what I mean? And I thought that was a really cool experience. And it helped me realize how to look at the world, but how to know my own testimony and to continue to believe in it. Okay. So does that make sense? Do you have any questions or anything? Okay. So let's look at the family. So we've talked about gender. But what do you feel like the function of a family is?
I think it's kind of to help us provide for each other and to provide not only like the different physical needs that we have, but also like the mental and emotional needs that we have. And it helps us to work together and to be able to kind of build ourselves.
Yeah. So it's not just about one person, but we help build each other up individually. Do you think there are any dysfunctions to family?
I think there's definitely like argument between people within the family, and sometimes people decide that it's not worth it, like worth the different struggles that you have.
Yeah. So I think kind of like divorce.
Yeah.
That's a good example of a dysfunction to a family. And kind of what it does to a family, like you can see the effects of it. I'm trying to think if I can think of any just other dysfunctions that are kind of easy. Well, and I think, so bear with me on this one. So I think agency kind of sometimes serves as a dysfunction within a family. Because we're free to choose, and so we're free to choose how we interact with one another. And that can be really dysfunctional, like divorce.
Yeah.
But it plays a role our entire lives. Because from this one family, we break off and make our own families, right? And we kind of take with us the bits and pieces we learn from our families. So sometimes when family is dysfunctional, it kind of trickles down until you learn what a functional family is. And that can differ from culture to culture, right? And from, I want to say generation to generation, because even in our generation, we're seeing more single-parent households or same-sex households, things like that, where we know from a gospel lens that some of these things are very dysfunctional, like the same-sex households. That can be a dysfunction, or there is a dysfunction in single household, right? Because they're not getting both of those roles, and they're not getting both of those influences, right? So how can we look at it from the conflict
well, I think we've mostly talked about it, is like there's conflict between people, and there always will be, and so sometimes it's like, well, is it best to be with some other people, like with all the struggles that you face with conflict just between you two?
Are we stronger together or better apart, kind of thing? Well, and the other thing that was coming to my mind, so I just moved into my new apartment, and I met one of my new roommates, and we were talking and stuff, and there's conflict within siblings a lot of the time, you know, between the older ones sometimes and the younger ones, and how parenting is different, things like that. Like I can think of my own, like my two older siblings, they had to work a little harder, and we've even talked about this as we're all adults now. My mom went, well, we weren't doing as well when you guys, you know, started driving or got to the age where we let you guys have phones as we did when me and my brother. And so I think that is a kind of the haves and the have-nots type thing, where, you know, our older siblings have all of these things, but we don't, or how the younger siblings get these things easier when we didn't, type things. And then symbols. What do you think some symbols within the family or of the family are there?
I think like almost like the picture that the world paints a family, like big families and small families, and how a lot of people don't want big families.
Yeah.
It could kind of be one. It's more like of an abstract symbol.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of times within sociology, at least with my experience, if you can think it and kind of build up a reasoning why behind it, you can actually find a lot of stuff. So there's really no right or wrong answers. I mean, there are, but when they're kind of abstract, you actually have more freedom in a way. And that's what's cool about sociology, is you get to see that, and because we're so different from generation to generation to generation, or culture to culture, things like that. It's really cool to kind of have that idea of what a symbol could be and find it and see how it's changed or how it's evolved through time, or from one continent to another. So that's from the world. What would you say the symbols or the conflict looking through the gospel? Can you find any from either one of those theories?
Well, the conflict part in the gospel is like we see the conflict of the different roles between the different like parents and the roles that like the children play.
Yeah.
As like we talk about how the children teach the fathers teach the children. That part. We sometimes through the gospel we can see the conflict and be able to like resolve it, I guess.
Yeah.
Between the two, because like in the world there's a lot of conflict about the different roles that like parents should play with like same sex and all of that different stuff, because there are different roles that and influences that a male and a female or as parents play in like a family.
Yeah.
And through the gospel we can see those different roles as complementary to each other.
Yeah.
And how they work in the family.
Yeah. So I kind of want to turn back to the function. So something else we really study is the social norms. And do you know what I mean when I say social norms?
Like the usual, what usually happens.
What we've become to accept. So in a family, that's where a lot of those are learned. Of what is normal or what should be done or shouldn't be done. That's where you're taught a lot of those things. And you're taught by example or through symbolic things. And but not always. You're not always taught all of those. And that's when school comes in handy. And when other societal functions, other societal topics come in to help you get more wholesome, entire experience. But within the family, when you're learning from all those different influences, it's where you learn what your fathers before you've taught. So that's the fathers, and the children are also teaching their fathers. And it's interesting to see how much that differs from what we know as a family, what it should be, and what those functions, those social norms, are taught there, and what the world looks. Like in the world, swearing and drinking, and a lot of those things that we know aren't okay are kind of tossed aside. There's an overgeneralization. There's whatever, there's not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very big difference, you know what I mean, from family to family. But in the church, there are, because we have gospel truths and we have gospel doctrines, and we have living prophets who give us, helpful things, of what not to teach or what to teach, or how we should be, our way of being. And we have the scriptures as well,
Mm-hmm.
Like virtue garnish your thoughts unceasingly, or that family is ordained of God. And so it's easy, I feel like, when looking at the family, to see those variations, to see how the world now views family, that you don't need a mom and a dad.
Mm-hmm.
That being blessed with a child isn't the end of the world. That's where like abortion comes in and things like that, but it all starts with a family, because the family is the central unit. It's what this gospel is about. I was reading a talk this weekend, and it actually, I forget the sister's name, but she was talking about how anything that is anti-family is anti-Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's anti-family, or anti-Christ, is anti-family. And it was a good refresher on how central it is to our way of being and our way of life, and to the church. Because you know how we say the Book of Mormon is the keystone of our religion. I think another really close second one would be the family,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so central in everything we do. That's where we learn our roles and we learn our divine worth, and where we get help and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your gospel truths when it comes to the family?
I think the first one would be that the family is ordained of God, and that the gospel, like what we believe in, relates to the family, and the family is central to the plan, and everything else that we learn and the things that we do learn in the family are to help us throughout our lives, and the different experiences that we have are teaching us lessons for the rest of our lives, basically.
Yeah.
Preparing us in a way.
Yeah. Well, I think another one is that, being a part of a family, when we go off, or to create our own families. And, when they're eternal, they're growing. And that's something that's never going to change. And I think that's really cool, that we're always going to have a family, we're always going to have some sort of a family, some place to go back to. And when we end this life, it's just going to be one big party with all of our family members. So looking at this, can you see how we can take just one understanding, or three understandings, and look at the world and see how the world thinks a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
And it's honestly just a taste. Until we really dive into it, we don't get the full story, but we can see a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
even in just our lives here. but seeing what the world may say and seeing what we know to be true, our gospel influences, we can then really know why we do these things, or know that we believe these things because because this is what the gospel is doing for me. This is why it's different, or the world and the gospel working together. And I think sociology is a good way to find how to be in the world, but not to be of the world. So do you have any other questions?
Not really.
Do you think you'd be able to apply this to other topics or other things that might come up?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? Do you want
Yeah.
to know more about sociology?
Yeah, I think it was kind of cool because in seminary, we have doctrinal masteries now instead of scripture masteries,
Oh,
which was a big change. So instead of memorizing scriptures, they take a doctrine. They have different doctrines. They have scriptures that relate to the doctrines,
Yeah.
of course, to back them up. But it's not like we're supposed to memorize the doctrines now instead of the scriptures that come along with that. And I think it's kind of cool because each of the principles that we've talked about, because we're almost at the end of the choice, we're on our last doctrinal topic, doctrinal mastery, and each of the ones that we've talked about, we've talked about the different ways that how the world is kind of trying to attack that doctrine, which is like Satan's way of destroying the gospel is attacking the different doctrines that we believe in. And just the way that you said it was the way that you worded the question was what's the doctrinal truth behind that? And I think that's kind of cool to think about because you can, like we were talking about, you can be in the world but not of the world with that, because you can see the doctrinal topic and see how the world views it, but still stay true to what you believe in.
yeah, that's great. Okay, well, cool. Well,